Meet AnonyMouse, the artist collective installing miniature stores into the streets of Sweden, London. Over the past few years, a highly secretive network working out of Sweden has been opening our eyes to a world we had not given much thought to before. But no, this isn't WikiLeaks or the hackers group Anonymous. This is AnonyMouse, an anonymous collection of artists behind the installation of tiny buildings, stores and cafes across the streets of Sweden and Europe, designed to be inhabited by mice. The scenes, like the fairy tales that inspired them, are dreamy and adorable, to say the least. A miniature record store, complete with mouse variations on some of the most classic albums of all time, a bottle-cap banjo, a tiny bistro, a travel agent, a jazz club, all crafted to the tiniest detail. Well, it started with a few of us just wanting to construct something in a public setting. And the discussion narrowed in on our love for the movies of Disney and American film director Bluth and Swedish children's author Astrid Lindgren and Beatrix. AnonyMouse, speaking under the condition of anonymity, told ABC News, "We like to think of it as something we ourselves would love to stumble upon in an otherwise dull concrete environment. More. Cold water swimming, the outdoor pursuit making waves in the UK. The group has been working for the past 5 years, ever since they built a little Italian bistro and a nut shop into one sidewalk. Now, they have completed an estimated 30 installations, mostly in Malmö and Stockholm in Sweden, but installations have also popped up in Bayonne in the south of France and the Isle of Man off the coast of the UK after scouting a location. The group then researched the local history of the area they are in to inform their design. Once sketched out, the constructions take up to 2 months to build before they are installed in the dead of night. We just want to bring a little bit of magic into people's everyday lives, and maybe inspire someone to create something on their own street," AnonyMouse said. "We like to imagine a world where small animals live parallel to us, and recycle objects we lose or throw away. So a bottle cap becomes a chair, a box of matches a table, a stamp becomes a painting, and a trash can becomes a restaurant. More. Hollywood takeover of Wales soccer team promises to revive a struggling town's fortunes." Last summer, interest in Anonymous's work grew substantially, with the group amassing over 70,000 followers on Instagram. Michael Garish, an American photographer based in Lund, Sweden, captured a few of the dreamlike miniature scenes on video, which show stunned onlookers bending impossibly low to the ground to take pictures and admire the work. "I had been following AnonyMouse for a couple of years, and had traveled to nearby Malmö to see the installations, but the locations weren't ideal for time-lapse," he told ABC News. "So when AnonyMouse showed up in London locations with next to no traffic, I thought it would be fun to give the artists some feedback and insight into the public appreciation of their work. A thank you of sorts." More. Looking for the canine Da Vinci, 6 dogs compete on world stage in live-streamed Genius Challenge. Even with their recent success, the artists collective will not be sacrificing their treasured anonymity anytime soon. "As long as we remain anonymous, each viewer can project whoever they want us to be," the anonymous artist said. "And also, the pun is pretty good, so if we revealed ourselves, we would have to change our name." A 12-year-old was killed after a grenade, likely bought at an antique mall, exploded. A 12-year-old in Virginia was killed by an exploding grenade investigators believe was bought from an antique mall in North Carolina. And now authorities are warning others may have been sold and could be live. The grenades were thought to be chemically inactive Mk2 grenades, a style used during World War II. According to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives (ATF), the child was killed on December 23 by an exploding grenade that ATF believes was bought on June 13 from the Fancy Flea Antique Mall in Charlotte. CNN has reached out to the antique mall but has not heard back. When the grenade was sold, the agency said the vendor and buyer didn't believe grenades to be functioning or hazardous. ATF asks others who may have bought a grenade from the same shop to contact them. Out of concern that the grenades purchased from the vendor may contain live explosives and could be hazardous to the public, this wouldn't be the first time a grenade believed to be inert was found and proved to be live. In December 2019, also in North Carolina, a live grenade was found inside a donated dresser at the Habitat Restore in Durham. The volunteer who found it removed it from the building and law enforcement was called. No injuries were reported. Florida firefighter is arrested after photo showed him pointing at a placard for Speaker Pelosi in U.S. Capitol building. A Florida firefighter was arrested for unlawful entry of a restricted building and disorderly conduct on Capitol grounds, according to court documents, after a photo surfaced of him wearing a Trump 2020 hat and pointing at a placard for Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi inside the U.S. Capitol. Andrew Williams, a firefighter-paramedic with the Sanford Fire Department, appeared in federal court Tuesday and was released on a $25,000 signature bond, according to the court documents. The Sanford Fire Department launched an investigation into Williams's involvement after the photo circulated online. Fire Chief Craig Radzik confirmed it was Williams in the photo and said that Williams had been with the department as a firefighter-paramedic since October 2016. Williams has been placed on administrative leave without pay, according to an updated release from the fire department. As one of the bail conditions, Williams must appear at all court proceedings. In addition, he is not allowed to possess firearms, ammunition or dangerous weapons, and must surrender his passport by Friday. Records from federal court in Florida show that Williams's case is being transferred to the District of Columbia. He is allowed to travel to D.C. as necessary for court appearances. According to the conditions, Vince Citro, an attorney for Williams, told CNN affiliate WESH TV that President Donald Trump and the Capitol Police are to blame for the attack. The president and the Capitol Police encouraged despicable behavior, Citro said, speaking outside of court. Mr. Williams took part in none of it. In fact, you'll notice in the complaint there are no allegations that Mr. Williams did any of those things. The Sanford Fire Department has suspended its investigation pending the conclusion of the federal investigation, according to its statement. We hold the men and women in this department to the highest standards, Chief Radzik said in the release. It saddens me that the actions of one individual have tarnished the hard work and dedication that the rest of the department puts forth on a daily basis. Former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder and others will be indicted in the Flint water crisis, reports say. Former Michigan Gov. Rick Snyder is about to be indicted on criminal charges by a special counsel for his role in the Flint water crisis, news outlets including CNN affiliate WXYZ report. Snyder and several other officials will face state criminal charges in connection with the crisis, the outlets report. Snyder's attorney calls the reports meritless and a political escapade. 12 people died of Legionnaire's disease during the water crisis. A source with knowledge of the situation tells the Detroit News that Snyder and others are set to be formally indicted as soon as Thursday. Brian Lennon, an attorney for the former governor, says that his client is being made into a scapegoat by a politically driven special counsel. It is outrageous to think any criminal charges would be filed against Governor Snyder. Any charges would be meritless, he said in a written statement. Rather than following the evidence to find the truth, the Office of Special Counsel appears to be targeting former Gov. Snyder in a political escapade. The Michigan State Attorney General's office wouldn't comment on details of the overall investigation, but a spokesman told CNN the office will share more when in a position to do so. An attorney for former Flint Public Works Director Howard Croft told the Detroit Press that his client also expects to be charged. Attorney Jamie White said he was informed Monday. Flint's water problems can be traced back to 2014, when city and state officials switched the city's water supply in an effort to cut costs. That decision exposed residents to dangerously high levels of lead and prompted more than a dozen lawsuits against those involved. Governor Snyder apologized for the state's role in the crisis. 12 people died and more than 80 were sickened as a result of 2 waves of a Legionnaire's disease outbreak in Flint. Last year, the state reached a $600 million settlement with victims, and a court-monitored compensation fund for victims was established. The water quality problems began when the state switched Flint's water supply from Lake Huron to the notoriously filthy Flint River. The measure, meant to reduce costs, was supposed to be temporary while a new supply line to Lake Huron was completed. When the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality failed to treat the corrosive water, it ate into the city's iron and lead pipes and leached into the drinking water. Flint residents had been complaining about the poor quality of their water when the Environmental Protection Agency tested water going into homes there in 2015, finding dangerous levels of lead, which can cause serious health issues. An outbreak of Legionnaire's disease linked to the water led to criminal charges against state officials, including Nick Leone, then director of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, in 2017. Prosecutors dropped all criminal charges in 2019 and said the investigation would begin again from scratch, citing concerns about how the special counsel had conducted its probe. More than a dozen lawsuits, including several class action suits, were filed against the state, the city of Flint, and some state and city employees involved in the decision to switch the source of the drinking water and those responsible for monitoring water quality. Snyder, who was elected in 2010, served until 2018. House poised to impeach Trump for a second time. The U.S. House is poised to impeach President Donald Trump for a second time on Wednesday for incitement of insurrection, exactly 1 week after a violent siege on the U.S. Capitol left 5 people dead. House Democrats have the votes to impeach Trump, who will become the first and only president in U.S. history to be impeached twice. More. Lawmakers briefed on multiple potential threats to Congress between now and inauguration. In a turn of events, at least 5 House Republicans have announced they too will vote to impeach Trump. Even though no Republicans supported the effort during Trump's first impeachment proceedings related to the Ukraine matter in 2019. There has never been a greater betrayal by a President of the United States of his office and his oath to the Constitution. I will vote to impeach the President, GOP Conference Chair Liz Cheney said in a statement Tuesday. She is the number 3 Republican in the House and is a member of leadership GOP Reps. Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, John Katko of New York, Herrera Butler of Washington and Fred Upton of Michigan also announced their support of the article of impeachment late Tuesday. There is no doubt in my mind that the President of the United States broke his oath of office and incited this insurrection, Kinzinger said in a statement. Katko said in a statement, to allow the President of the United States to incite this attack without consequence is a direct threat to the future of our democracy. For that reason, I cannot sit by without taking action. I will vote to impeach this president. More, this is what Trump told supporters before many stormed Capitol Hill. Democrats formally introduced their impeachment resolution Monday, charging Trump with incitement of insurrection after he told his supporters to march on the Capitol. The House is expected to begin considering the article of impeachment on Wednesday morning, with debate and a final vote set for later Wednesday. The vote will take place exactly 1 week before the inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden. More, Trump lashes out at impeachment effort, claims it's causing tremendous anger. The measure says that Trump has demonstrated that he will remain a threat to national security, democracy and the Constitution if allowed to remain in office, and has acted in a manner grossly incompatible with self-governance and the rule of law. The impeachment article also cited Trump's call with the Georgia Republican Secretary of State, where he urged him to find enough votes for Trump to win the state. It also cited the Constitution's 14th Amendment, noting that it prohibits any person who has engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the United States from holding office. House GOP leadership said they would not encourage members to vote for or against Democrats' impeachment push, according to House leadership aides. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy has already announced that he does not support impeachment. But sources told ABC News that it's possible at least a handful of Republicans will support it in the end. On a private House GOP-wide conference call that lasted roughly 2 hours on Monday evening, Cheney told members that they should vote their conscience, and not as a political vote, sources familiar confirmed. Late Tuesday, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced 9 House impeachment managers who would oversee a possible Senate trial. Tonight, I have the solemn privilege of naming the managers of the impeachment trial of Donald Trump, Pelosi said in a statement. It is their constitutional and patriotic duty to present the case for the president's impeachment and removal. They will do so guided by their great love of country, determination to protect our democracy, and loyalty to our oath to the Constitution. Our managers will honor their duty to defend democracy for the people with great solemnity, prayerfulness, and urgency. In the Senate, Trump appeared to be losing the support of the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. McConnell had indicated to associates that he believed impeaching Trump could make it easier to rid the Republican Party of the president and Trumpism. McConnell has not said if he would vote to convict or whether he'd hold a trial in the Senate, ABC News has learned. It's unclear at this point when Democratic leaders would send the article of impeachment to the Senate. McConnell has said he won't bring back the Senate from recess before January 19, a day before Biden's inauguration. Late Tuesday, House Democrats passed another resolution that called on Vice President Mike Pence and the cabinet to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove him from office. Just ahead of the final vote, Pence announced in a statement that he would not follow through with Democrats' request of invoking the 25th Amendment, and urged Congress to avoid actions that would further divide and inflame the passions of the moment. I do not believe that such a course of action is in the best interest of our nation or consistent with our Constitution, Pence said in a statement. Trump on Tuesday lashed out at the impeachment effort by House Democrats, claiming it's causing tremendous anger and danger to our country. As far as this is concerned, we want no violence, never violence, Trump said outside the White House before departing for Texas, facing reporters for the first time since his supporters rioted last Wednesday. On the impeachment, it's really a continuation of the greatest witch hunt in the history of politics. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. This impeachment is causing tremendous anger. And you're doing it, and it's really a terrible thing that they're doing. ABC News' Benjamin Siegel and Trish Turner contributed to this report. House Judiciary Committee report, materials in support of HRES 24 by ABC News. Politics on Scribd. Johnson & Johnson coronavirus vaccine generates immune response, few side effects. In early-stage trials of Johnson & Johnson's experimental coronavirus vaccine show it generated an immune response in nearly all volunteers with minimal side effects. After a single dose, the company expects to report details of more advanced trials later this month and is hoping to apply for authorization from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration soon after. Researchers who tested the vaccine in a combined phase 1-2 trial, mostly meant to show safety, found either 1 or 2 doses of the vaccine generated both antibody and T-cell responses against the coronavirus. The trials were not designed to show whether the vaccine protected people against either infection or symptoms of coronavirus. That's what the ongoing phase 3 trials are designed to do. Writing in the New England Journal of Medicine, an international team of researchers who tested the vaccine in around 800 volunteers said the early-stage trials showed it was safe and probably should work. The researchers in the Netherlands The United States and Belgium tested the vaccine in a group of people 65 and older and a group ages 18 to 55. Vaccination elicited neutralizing antibodies expected to stop the virus from infecting cells in 90% of all participants by the 29th day after the first dose of vaccine and in all of them by 2 months after the first dose. The levels of these antibodies stayed stable for at least 71 days, they reported. The FDA has given emergency use authorization to 2 coronavirus vaccines, one made by Pfizer with its partner BioNTech and another by Moderna. Both were about 95% effective in preventing symptomatic disease in their phase 3 trials. They use messenger RNA or mRNA, a new vaccine technology. Johnson & Johnson's vaccine arm, Janssen, uses a different approach for its vaccine, called for now by its experimental name, Ad26-CoV2-S. It uses a weakened version of a common cold virus called adenovirus 26 to carry genetic material from the virus into the body, prompting human cells to produce pieces of the virus which are then recognized by the immune system. A single dose of Ad26-CoV2-S elicited a strong humoral response in a majority of vaccine recipients, with the presence of S binding and neutralizing antibodies in more than 90% of participants regardless of either age group or vaccine dose, the researchers wrote. An efficacious single-dose COVID-19 vaccine have obvious logistic advantages over a 2-dose vaccine. Especially during a pandemic, the company is studying whether a second dose increases efficacy or durability of the immune response. Side effects included headache, body ache and, more rarely, fever. The company anticipates announcing top-line Phase 3 data for its single-dose Janssen COVID-19 vaccine candidate in late January 2021. However, as this trial is dependent on disease events, the timing is approximate, Johnson & Johnson said in a statement. But with the pandemic raging in the US and Europe, vaccine experts say, answers are coming quickly for vaccine trials. If the single-dose vaccine is shown to be safe and effective, the company expects to submit an application for emergency use authorization with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration shortly afterwards, with other regulatory applications around the world to be made subsequently, Johnson & Johnson added. All of the companies making coronavirus vaccine have been manufacturing doses even as they test them, so they can roll them straight out to people should they get FDA authorization. Johnson & Johnson is contracted to deliver 100 million doses to the U.S. government if it wins EUA from the FDA. The New York Times reported on Wednesday that Johnson & Johnson was behind schedule in its production. However, the pandemic shows no signs of slowing, and we, like everyone, are eager for more tools to help stop it. At the same time, it is premature to get into the specifics of the supply of our vaccine candidate, as we do not yet have Phase 3 data. Nor have we filed for or been granted emergency use authorization, Johnson & Johnson said in a statement Wednesday. We remain in active discussions with regulators, including on the approval and validation of our manufacturing processes. Republican congressman explains his vote for impeachment. There must be accountability. Representative Peter Meijer, one of just 10 House Republicans who voted to impeach President Donald Trump, explained his vote Wednesday evening as a step toward accountability, following the president's response to last week's U.S. Capitol insurrection. I was in the House chamber when it was being attacked a week ago today. That was a moment that called for leadership. I was hoping to see the president rapidly try to de-escalate, try to denounce, try to stop the violence from occurring, and he abandoned his post, Meijer, a Michigan freshman lawmaker, told CNN's Wolf Blitzer. To me that was disqualifying. My heart broke in that time, seeing folks ransacking the Capitol. And since then, the president has not accepted responsibility. I hold the seat that was held by Gerald Ford for 25 years before he was elevated to the White House. He pardoned Richard Nixon, but that was after Richard Nixon resigned and was held accountable for his actions. And here, there must be accountability. The House voted 232 to 197 to impeach Trump exactly 1 week after rioters forced lawmakers to flee from the very chamber in which they cast ballots in the fourth presidential impeachment in U.S. history, and the first time a president has been impeached twice. In all, 10 GOP lawmakers, including the House's number 3 Republican, Liz Cheney of Wyoming, joined all Democrats to impeach Trump for incitement of insurrection. Meyer, who replaced Justin Amash, the Republican-turned-independent former congressman who supported Trump's first impeachment, had signaled his support for impeachment earlier in the week, telling CNN's Aaron Burnett on Outfront that Trump is no longer qualified to hold that office. Pressed at that time on whether he'd made a definitive decision on impeachment, Meyer maintained that he would wait to see the additional evidence presented, but again, this is something we're strongly considering. Ultimately, though, he concluded that Trump had betrayed his oath of office by seeking to undermine our constitutional process, according to a statement released by Meyer's office earlier Wednesday. This vote is not a victory. It isn't a victory for my party, and it isn't the victory the Democrats might think it is. I'm not sure it is a victory for our country, the statement said. But it is a call to action for us to reflect on these events and seek ways to correct them. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is not planning to bring the chamber back for a trial before January 19, meaning it won't begin until Trump is out of office and President-elect Joe Biden has been sworn in. McConnell said in a statement following the vote that a Senate trial could not be completed ahead of Biden's inauguration even if it started beforehand. And he wanted Congress and the executive branch to spend the next week focused on facilitating a safe inauguration and an orderly transfer of power. I trust that Sen. McConnell will do what he thinks is best for the country, Meyer said Wednesday evening. He's shown that he cares about the institution, that he cares about the nation. And I'm sure whatever timeline he proposes will be appropriate. Voice of America reporter reassigned for Pompeo questions New York. The White House reporter for Voice of America was abruptly pulled from her beat after trying to question Secretary of State Mike Pompeo following a speech he gave at the government agency this week. Pompeo's speech and the demotion of Patsy Widakuswara led to an angry phone meeting between journalists and managers Tuesday that typified some of the tensions at the agency during President Donald Trump's administration. Founded during World War II and run by the U.S. Agency for Global Media, Voice of America broadcasts news from the United States to countries around the world. The administration has sought to have VOA better reflect its messages while journalists there have taken pride in their independence. In his speech on Monday, Pompeo said that it's not fake news for you to broadcast that this is the greatest nation in the history of the world. He said he backed their role as journalists, but said the agency was not Voice of America and that its broadcasts had too often demeaned the country. After speaking, he engaged in a brief question-and-answer session with VOA's new director, Robert Riley. Apparently unsatisfied with the questions put to Pompeo, Widakuswara shouted her own as he was leaving. "Mr. Secretary, what are you doing to repair the United States' reputation around the world?" she asked in reference to last week's riot at the U.S. Capitol, according to a tape of the encounter she later tweeted. When he didn't answer, she asked, "Mr. Secretary, do you regret saying there will be a second Trump administration?" Pompeo walked away without acknowledging her. "It is my job," Widakuswara tweeted. She declined comment when reached by the Associated Press. The Pompeo meeting itself was the subject of controversy among journalists there, particularly during the pandemic, and because they weren't allowed to ask questions, although some were submitted to Riley in writing. After Pompeo left, Widakuswara asked Riley why he didn't ask any of the questions that we want to know about, according to a recording of the encounter. Riley asked who Widakuswara was and her job, and told her. "You obviously don't know how to behave." After she told him she was paid to ask questions, Riley said that she was out of order. Later Monday evening, Wittecke informed the White House Correspondents Association that she was no longer able to go on President Donald Trump's trip to Texas, where she was supposed to be the radio pool reporter. Through a spokeswoman, the U.S. Agency for Global Media said Tuesday that it did not comment on personnel matters. The Democratic chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Gregory Meeks, and the lead Republican, Michael McCaul, issued a joint statement saying they were incredibly frustrated with Wittecke's demotion, absent a legitimate reason for this move, which has not been provided. "We believe she should be reinstated," the congressman said. "This is the United States of America. We do not punish our journalists for seeking answers to their questions." The White House Correspondents Association, in a statement by its president, Zeke Miller, accused the Trump administration of committing an assault on the First Amendment. Steve Herman, who is Voice of America's White House bureau chief, tweeted his support for his colleague. "I have worked with Patsy for several years," Herman wrote. "She exemplifies excellence and integrity. She has always carried out her duties in adherence to VOA's charter. I am confident most, if not all, of my colleagues share this assessment." During a morning editorial meeting on Tuesday, some VOA journalists confronted management about whether Riley and his boss, Agency for Global Media head Michael Peck, had let Pompeo undermine their independence as reporters. According to a person who listened to the call and spoke under condition of anonymity because the person was not authorized to speak to the press,